Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Government House. My name is Hugh Boreham and I have the honour to be Official Secretary to Her Excellency the Governor, and I'll be the Master of Ceremonies this afternoon. This is the last of 7 ceremonies to present Australian honours, most of which were announced honours representing the Commissioner of Police. If you can, I now ask you please to be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency the Governor, the Honourable Francis Adamson AC, and to remain standing. Please be seated.
I acknowledge we're meeting on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and I pay my respects to the elders and to any Aboriginal people who may be with us today. Well, welcome everyone. As I heard the Official Secretary say, this is the 7th and final Investiture ceremony in which we are acknowledging and awarding wonderful South Australians whose honours were first announced in the Australia Day Honours List, which must seem a very long time ago now. But welcome everyone to Government House. Rod and I very much want this to be a house for all South Australians. We know some of you will have been here before. For some it will be the first of what I hope will be several visits. We're very keen that you should feel comfortable today. I know it can be a little bit imposing and some of you may wonder exactly what's going to happen and doesn't it feel terribly formal. Well, you can be formal but also comfortable, and I encourage you to be both. To those whose service we're honouring today, I hope you'll feel as comfortable as you have every day providing that service that we're honouring today. For those of you at the front who are supporting them, I hope that you will realise what a special ceremony this is. You know intimately, of course, the service of the person you've come with, and in the course of the afternoon you'll come to realise that they're in very good company. In fact, I think we probably have saved the best until last. The Australian Honours System, awards in the Order of Australia, are designed to recognise outstanding service and exceptional achievement. That achievement, of course, needs to be seen by someone, and someone needs to nominate in order for the process to get going. But all of those we're honouring today have been nominated by another Australian, and I encourage you, by the end of this ceremony, you'll know what good looks like, what really good looks like. And when you see it again, I encourage you, please, to nominate your fellow citizens, to give them and their loved ones an opportunity to come here and have their service and their achievements awarded. Something that makes the whole process so exceptional to me is it's a sum, I suppose, of all the individual service, all the wonderful people. But these are people, as you all know, who don't seek recognition. Some people feel embarrassed by it. Some don't even think it can be happening to them. And we just need to be mindful of what service, how well served South Australia has been by the people that we're honouring today. So please, when you see service like this again, don't just let it go past. Nominate. It's a pretty straightforward thing today. But enjoy, Official Secretary.
Your Excellency, the following appointments to Member of the Order of Australia in the General Division have been made. Mrs. Kathy Chi-Ya Chong is recognised for significant service to multiculturalism in South Australia and to the community. Since retiring from nursing, Mrs. Chong has dedicated herself to advocating for the multicultural community and volunteering across the health and arts sectors. She is a founding ambassador for the Ausasia Festival and the founder and president of the Suki Nang South Australian Hainan Association. Her former board positions have included Deputy Chair of the Multicultural Festival of South Australia and Executive Board Member of the Multicultural Communities Council of South Australia. She currently sits on the board of the Adelaide Festival Centre. Her interest in health has extended to volunteer advisory positions with Breast Screen South Australia and membership of the Stakeholder Reference Group for Health Connect. She is a former member of the Asia Pacific Business Council for Women South Australia and the Volunteer Ministerial Advisory Group for the South Australian Minister for Small Business. Mrs. Chong has also been an active member of the Rotary Club of Adelaide Central. Mrs. Kathy Chi Ya Chong. Mr. Stephen Charles Haynes is recognised for significant service to local government, to education and to the community. Mr. Haynes has dedicated his career to serving the South Australian community through local government, board membership and academia. In 1976 he started as a city planner at the City of Unley, rising through the ranks to become town clerk in 1981. From 1991 to 2011, he was Chief Executive Officer of the City of Salisbury. During his local government career, he was heavily involved in the South Australian Planning Commission, including as its chairman from 1982 to 88. Mr. Haynes has sat on countless local government and community boards, including as chair of the Stormwater Management Authority and the Centennial Park Cemetery Authority. He is a previous director of the Bedford Group. Mr. Haynes is a fellow of the Local Government Professionals Australia and a Life Fellow of the Planning Institute of Australia. He is now Deputy Chancellor of Flinders University. Mr. Stephen Charles Haynes. Your Excellency, the Medal in the Order of Australia has been awarded to the following recipients. Mr. Leslie Allen Dennis is recognised for service to the community through a range of organisations. Since 2008, as a volunteer with Second Chances SA, Mr. Dennis has helped coordinate nearly 100 mentoring camps for children who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. This is on top of his volunteer work with the Rotary Club of Burnside, of which he has been a member for 38 years, serving in every committee position apart from Treasurer. He is currently the club's Director of Administration, Events and Fundraising. Mr. Dennis works with the wider Rotary organisation as the Coordinator of Community and Vocational Services and as a member of the Australian Rotary Health Indigenous Scholarship Committee. He is the current Chair of the Rotary Community Service Committee, District 9510, and sits on the Bushfire Relief Committee. His service with Rotary led to him receiving Rotary International's highest award, the Service Above Self Award, and in 2020, the City of Norwood, Payneham and St Peters named Mr. Dennis its Australia Day Citizen of the Year. Mr. Leslie Allen Dennis. Mrs. Jane Doyle is recognised for service to the broadcast media, particularly to television and to the community. Mrs. Doyle has been reading Adelaide television news for more than 30 years, beginning at the ABC in 1986. But it was as co-anchor with Graham Goodings at the Seven Network that she became a household name, winning Best TV News Presenter in 1988 1990, 1991, 1995 and 2004. During her career, Mrs. Doyle has been patron of several charitable organisations, including the Flinders Foundation, the Mental Illness Fellowship of SA and Surf Life Saving South Australia. She is currently an ambassador for Impact 100 SA. Mrs. Doyle also supports South Australian art and artists as an advocate for the Adelaide Cabaret Festival and a member of the Chairman's Circle of the Adelaide Festival. She is former co-patron of the Adelaide Girls Choir, former chair of the Karklu Youth Arts Board and a former member of the University of Adelaide Creativity and Culture Advisory Board. Mrs. Jane Doyle. Professor Sri Ann Galletly is recognised for service to medicine as a psychiatrist. Professor Galletly has dedicated her research career to improving quality of care for people with severe mental illness. She has shared her knowledge with the University of Adelaide medical students for more than 30 years and is currently the interim and acting dean of the Adelaide Medical School. Since 2007, Professor Galletly has been Ramsay Healthcare's Chair of Psychiatry, the Adelaide Clinic. She is also the current chair of its Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation Research Committee and a member of its Medical Advisory Committee. She is a board member of the Schizophrenia International Research Society and has previously sat on the Society's membership and ethics committees. Professor Galletly has held a range of roles with the National Health and Medical Research Council, as well as with the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists. From 2011 to 21, she was the Associate Editor of the Australian and New Zealand Journal of Psychiatry. Professor Sri Ann Galletly. Mr. Darren Hicks is recognised for service to sport as a gold medalist at the Tokyo Paralympic Games 2020. Mr. Hicks grew up as a devoted BMX rider. After losing his leg in a road accident in 2014 and undertaking a lengthy recovery, he decided to try track cycling. In 2015, Mr. Hicks competed for the first time as a para-athlete. After losing by 50 minutes in his first race, he put cycling aside for 6 months before giving it another chance. This time, he no longer used a prosthetic and pedalled only with his left leg. From here, Mr. Hicks became unstoppable. In 2017, he won his first national title, and later that year, he won silver at the Road World Championships. In 2019, Mr. Hicks became a 2-time world champion, setting a world record time in the 3-kilometre individual pursuit. He realised his goal of becoming an Olympics champion at the Tokyo Paralympics, winning gold in the men's road time trial as well as silver in the men's 3-kilometre individual pursuit. Mr. Darren Hicks. Mr. Alexander Hill is recognised for service to sport as a gold medalist at the Tokyo Olympic Games 2020. Mr. Hill was introduced to rowing after attending a Come and Try day at the Berry Rowing Club whilst in Year 8. Despite being a latecomer to the sport, Mr. Hill excelled at junior and national competition level and in 2016 was named in the men's coxless 4 rowing team for the Rio Olympics. His team won their heat and placed second behind Great Britain to win silver in the final. Mr. Hill continued to row in the men's 4s after his Olympic debut and won multiple gold medals in World Rowing Cups and World Championships after the Games. At the Tokyo Olympic Games, Mr. Hill led Australia's coxless 4 in the important stroke seat position, with his strong command helping the team win gold and break Australia's run of 3 consecutive Olympic silver medals in this boat class. Mr. Alexander Hill. Mr. Anthony John Irvine is recognised for service to local government and to the communities of the Eyre Peninsula. Mr. Irvine has been a stalwart of the Eyre Peninsula region, undertaking many roles in local government, sport and the community. Seeing local government as a way to make a difference in improving the regional economy, community and environment, Mr. Irvine has served as Deputy Chief Executive of the Ceduna District Council and as Chief Executive Officer at Ceduna and Tumby Bay District Councils. He was also the Eyre Peninsula Local Government Association Executive Officer. One of Mr. Irvine's significant achievements was to help establish the Water West scheme, which delivers water to communities west of Ceduna. He has also contributed to rural sporting life as chairperson of the Eyre Peninsula Football Council and by participating in the Ceduna and Port Lincoln racing clubs. Known for his patience, persistence and courage, Mr. Irvine continues to serve the community as patron of the Eyre Peninsula Community Foundation and as a member of the Eyre Peninsula Landscape Board. Mr. Anthony John Irvine. Mr. Brian Leslie Matthews is recognised for service to the community through a range of organisations. Mr. Matthews is the former head of haematology at Adelaide's Women's and Children's Hospital. While now retired, his legacy of work lives on in our nation's hospitals and medical institutions. He was an extensive contributor to the Australian Institute of Medical and Clinical Services, while also a travelling orator, National Councillor, Fellow, former Chair and Executive Member of the South Australian Branch. He presented lectures and workshops on haematology morphology. Beyond his service to medicine, Brian has dedicated his time to humanitarian efforts as a board member at Maryland's Church of Christ and a volunteer in the Overseas Mission Board. He has also graciously given his recent years to the Adelaide Zoo, Adelaide University, Churches of Christ Community Care, and Friends of the One and All Sailing Ship. Mr. Brian Leslie Matthews. Mr. Graham Frederick Priestnall is recognised for service to the defence industry. Mr. Priestnall is the chairman of the Australian Industry and Defence Network. He has been a member for over 20 years, holding various leadership roles at state and national levels. Mr. Priestnall served as a naval officer in the Australian Defence Force and Lieutenant Commander in the Royal Australian Navy for 28 years. Marrying his defence experience and business acumen, he worked as a senior consultant, managing director, business development manager, and maritime portfolio lead for security, software, and technology companies. Mr. Priestnall brings half a century of expertise to his current role, specialising in electronic warfare. On advisory committees, forums and panels, he has been a key spokesman for defence and security in Australia and worldwide. Mr. Graham Frederick Priestnall. Mrs. Mary Louise Simpson is recognised for service to conservation and the environment and to the arts. Fiercely proud of South Australia's status as home to the first evidence of animal life on Earth, Mrs. Simpson established the Flinders Ranges Edakara Foundation to protect the region for scientific research, education and future generations. Committed to environmental and historical preservation, she is a sponsor of the South Australian Seed Conservation Centre, a patron of the National Trust of South Australia, and a volunteer teacher at the South Australian Museum. For 10 years, she was secretary of the Waterhouse Club, spearheading remote museum-led scientific expeditions. She is a published author, a lover of the arts, and a cheerleader for female composers, sponsoring the Composer in Association program at the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra and co-founding the Soundstream Emerging Composers Forum. Mrs. Mary Louise Simpson. Mrs. June Montgomery Smith, also known as Monty Smith, is recognised for service to the community through history preservation organisations. Approximately 16,000 Australians fought in the Boer War in South Africa that lasted from 1899 to 1902. Mrs. Smith, a keen historian, is the current chair and former secretary of the South Australian Boer War Memorial Committee, part of the National Boer War Memorial Association. Since 1993, she has been a member of the Legacy Club, helping to care for the bereaved families of veterans. For 26 years, she has also served as president of the Strathalbyn Legacy Widows Club. Mrs. Smith has co-authored 2 books under the name Monty Smith, centred on South Australia's unknown war heroes of the early 1900s. Her monographs shed light on an important part of our state's history. Mrs. June Montgomery Smith. Mrs. Margaret Ann Winterfield is recognised for service to veterans and their families. Mrs. Winterfield has been an exemplary volunteer for numerous community organisations in Mount Gambier, where she was born and raised. She has devoted more than 30 years to the local Returned Services League and an incredible 44 years to the Caledonian Society of Mount Gambier, where she has been chief since 2010. She is also a supporter of the local Legacy Group. A straight talker known for her heart of gold, Mrs. Winterfield has been a stalwart of the RSL Women's Auxiliary and is a member of the Sub-Branch Management Committee. Her energetic fundraising and organisation of functions and celebrations has earned her the admiration of her RSL peers. For her dedicated volunteer service, Mrs. Winterfield was awarded the Premier's Certificate of Recognition for Outstanding Community Service in 2018 and an RSL National Award. Mrs. Margaret Ann Winterfield. Your Excellency, that concludes the presentations.